Thank you for joining us today. We have Jean Marie Scordino, who is going to be guiding us through how what we eat impacts our emotional well-being.
Well, thank you, Jackie, and thank you all for being here today. And those of you who are online, I just want to welcome you here as we talk about a healthy mind. And did you know what you eat affects your moods? And like Jackie said, we all have felt that hangry feeling, but is there more to that? I want to let you know that I am an exercise physiologist, and I am going to mute. And I'm sorry for that. Just want to make sure everyone is on mute. Just makes it a better sound quality for everyone. But I'm an exercise physiologist and a clinical health coach. So as I'm speaking to you, I am speaking from that perspective. A lot of things you need to understand your own medical history. So you don't want to go diving into some things, and I'll mention that without talking to your doctor, without talking to a registered dietitian, because medications that you take, some of your own history will affect what it is overall that you have going on. So you want to make sure that you are paying attention to your own body. And we're looking at kind of the big picture here, and you can kind of see where that is coming. Because I'm playing on two screens, I am going to turn my camera off while I'm talking, but I will come back as we are doing the Q&A. So with that being said, have you ever thought about the food that you eat and how it impacts your mood and your mental health, your mental well-being? Well, it turns out that what's on your plate plays a huge role in how we feel, how we think, and even how we function day to day. Research is showing that people with a mental health challenge often have a diet that lacks in nutrients that are vital for our brain health. But the good news is, even if you don't have a mental health condition, our food choices still have a huge effect on our mood, our focus, and our overall well-being. Today, we're going to look at healthy food choices and how that can nourish our mind and improve our mental health and overall well-being. And while I'll be sharing tips on adding certain vitamins and minerals to your diet, I really want to emphasize the importance and caution when it comes to supplements. You don't want to just shove a bunch of supplements into your body. That's not always healthy. A lot of times, all it is expensive urine, because a lot of them are water soluble and they're just going to be excreted. Some of them are fat soluble, and that can build up in your system. So you want to make sure you're consulting with your doctor and a registered dietitian first to make sure what you're taking is appropriate for you. And a lot of times they'll even do blood work on you to make sure that your levels are good. So keeping that in mind, getting our nutrition from whole food is generally the best and safest, most effective way to support our mind and our body. Because when we get it in food, we're getting it in a mix with all the other vitamins and minerals that we need. We're getting the fiber, we're getting all the other pieces that go together with it. So we're going to dive into how to make those choices to lead a healthier, happier mind. So let's get ready to chat. Jackie, can you go in and mute everyone, please?
Yes, ma'am.
So as an exercise physiologist, clinical health coach, a lot of stuff that I work with is with the heart health. That's a big topic that and you muted me too. That's okay. But the heart health. And the heart health is important because everyone goes back to, those common conditions of elevated blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, all harm to our cardiovascular health. But research shows that the same things that harm our cardiovascular health also harm our cognitive and our emotional well-being health. So the good thing is when you start to think about eating healthy for your brain, eating healthy for your mental health, you're also doing all sorts of good things for your physical body and your heart health. So they kind of go hand in hand. And with that, we often hear about the Mediterranean diet. And the other one is called the DASH diet. So they call it the MIND diet, which is a combination of the Mediterranean and the DASH diet. So it draws from both of those, and it includes an abundance of vegetables, a lot of whole grains, and if you really want and desire, you can have a glass of wine daily also. But it recommends having lots of green leafy vegetables 6 times a week at minimum, having other vegetables at least once a day, having 2 or more servings of berries a week. Berries are very high in beneficial flavonoids and all sorts of other components that are good for our brain. They also advocate that we snack on nuts if you're not allergic. I have a house full of people who have nut allergies, so we can't do that. But if you can eat nuts, they are a great source of all sorts of good fats and nutrients. You want to try and add beans into your diet. Try and make sure you're eating fish and chicken the most time. If you're going to eat red meat, eat that lean red meat. But, the highlights here are really those. If you can eat blueberries and leafy greens, those are especially beneficial for the brain. So simply by incorporating more fruits and vegetables into your diet, research is showing it's helpful. In a 2017 study on brain health and nutrition, they showed adults who were 50 and older getting the recommended amounts of fruits and vegetable, and they reported significant brain health compared to those who were not getting the recommended amount. So in this research that they were showing, they tracked what everyone was eating and then compared them doing cognitive tasks, questions about their mood and their feelings, and they showed that those who were eating a lot of fruits and vegetables actually scored higher on the actual assessments and verbally reported that they were feeling much better. So what are some of these key nutrients that we want to look at? So in a review of about 17 studies, they looked at ultra-processed food, and that is one of the problems with our eating habits today is we eat foods that are so highly processed, all the things that are in the middle of the grocery store instead of those things that are found around the perimeter. Doesn't mean we can never eat processed foods. We're just looking at how do we maybe shift the balance a bit so that the bulk of what we're eating is real food and we eat a little bit less of that highly processed food. So many of the essential nutrients that are important for our brain health are absent or in very low quantities in the ultra processed food, unless it's fortified. And when you think about a fortified food, a lot of times they process it down, they rip everything off of it, and then they come through and they just spray nutrients on top of it. So it's taking the good stuff away and then trying to spray it back on later on. And they do this for shelf life. They do it for color. Sometimes it's taste and texture. All of these things kind of happen. So you kind of got to figure out, what's the most important thing as you're looking at food. I always like to tell people, and again, I'm not a registered dietitian, clinical health coach, is when you're looking at food, it's okay to have something that has ingredients in it. But when you're looking at the ingredients, it's really nice if you know what the ingredients are. Or there's a couple in there that might be stabilizers or this, but you don't have this huge list of things that you have no clue as to what they are. So looking at those key nutrients we want to do, we want B vitamins. B vitamins, there's a whole bunch of them. We've all heard of B12. People, I'm going to get a B12 shot, or they're doing all sorts of things. B vitamins work together in a specific ratio. So if you just take a high dose of one of the Bs, good chances are, like I said before, it's going to be expensive urine because it doesn't have the other pieces it needs to work together. Because if it doesn't have the right ratio, it gets rid of anything that's in excess. And the B vitamins are so important because they help our neurotransmitters to function. And the neurotransmitters are what sends the messages through our brain. It's what kind of helps move information around. And it's essential also to produce serotonin and dopamine. And we're going to be talking about some of these chemicals later on. But these play a big role in how we feel. So we can find a lot of the B vitamins in our leafy greens, beans, legumes, whole grains. And when you look at a package, it needs to actually say whole wheat or whole this. If it just says wheat or something along that lines, it does not have the whole kernel. They actually have little labels now on breads and crackers that you can see what percentage of this is a whole grain in there. So all of that really helps you to get those B vitamins. So next time you're tossing a salad, add a lot of leafy greens or make a hearty soup, think about adding some legumes into it, or even having some whole grain bread or a cracker with it so that you're kind of getting all of those components with you. Another really important area is vitamin C. C is a game changer for neurotransmitter synthesis. So that is, how do I make these neurotransmitters? So for order for them to function, I need them to be created. So vitamin C is pivotal in making that. It's crucial for brain function and mood. And you can find vitamin C in all those fruits and vegetables, especially things like oranges and bell peppers. And if you didn't know, a yellow, a red, and an orange bell pepper actually have more vitamin C than an orange. The green bell pepper does not have quite as much because that's a younger pepper and has not developed yet. So you want to make sure you're getting lots of fruits and vegetables. Strawberries right now are hot in Florida because they're coming out of Plant City. But a little tip is, if you're eating a high refined sugar diet, vitamin C does not absorb well. So you might again be excreting that vitamin C if there's too much sugar in your system. So balance is the key. You want to make sure that you're getting that balance. Next big one is zinc. And I know we heard a ton about zinc when we went through the big C phase of COVID, but zinc plays a crucial role in how our brain grows and develops. So it helps with memory and concentration. And if your memory is foggy or you're not able to concentrate, that creates anxiety, that creates stress in us. So that does not help our overall mood. So zinc helps to make sure our brain is clicking and growing and functioning the way it should. And some great ways to get zinc is foods like shellfish, poultry. There's a lot of it in our dairy. When we get to our seeds and nuts, they all come with a big punch in keeping our brain in tip-top shape. And finally, we have magnesium. Magnesium is kind of an underrated factor. I personally am a migraine sufferer, and I know my neurologist has tested me to see what my blood levels are and then has me on magnesium supplements because of what it does to help with the brain, because it helps to regulate the nervous system. It also helps to improve sleep. So depending on what you're eating and when you take it, it can help reduce some sleep issues that you might have. And they've even shown in studies that it helps to reduce some of the symptoms within depression. Again, it's not a cure-all, but it's something that can kind of benefit and help. Magnesium is also found in those nuts and seeds and legumes and green leafy vegetables. It's in those whole grains and even in a lot of fish. So it's a great nutrient to help keep you calm and balanced. So as you're looking at planning your meals, you want to think about, how do I plan for this? How do I throw some of these foods that have good nutritional punch? Maybe it's my snack that I have, something that's going to help me to be able to fortify my diet with these nutrients, instead of relying on taking a supplement, which doesn't always get absorbed as well in the system. So let's look at that Mediterranean diet again. Let's talk about how we eat affects our mental health and why that Mediterranean DASH diet is such a standout. It gets a lot of attention because it's packed with so many essential nutrients. It does a wonder for our brain. First, it supports brain plasticity. So this is the ability's body to change and adapt. So the brain's ability to rethink and reconfigure itself. This is how we improve our memory, our cognitive function. It supports what's called the hippocampus, a big part of our brain that actually can grow when we do exercise, because I'm an exercise physiologist. Give a plug to movement, but it's the part of the brain that's responsible for learning and memory. And if we don't have that, that affects our mood also, because we get frustrated or we get confused, and that can create feelings of not positive moods for us to have. So when we're looking at that, foods that are rich in healthy fats, so like your olive oils, avocado, fatty fish, all of that helps to maintain that brain plasticity. And next, there's the big link between our gut and our brain. There's the whole gut-brain connection, which is such an interesting conversation. And we do have a video out on the Baycare Presents site that Jackie can send out to you that actually talks specifically about this link. And it's not just a buzzword. It is so much is happening in our gut, and so many nerves and so many hormones are created through our gut that affect our body, that it actually helps to promote overall health and well-being. So when I have good gut microbes, what's going to happen is I'm going to have a better connection between my gut and my brain, between this wonderful nerve called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the wandering nerve. It goes all the way from our brain. I believe it's our 10th cranial nerve, and it goes all the way down to our pelvis and wanders throughout the body. And when we have this gut health, it's sending messages between our brain and our whole digestive system so that our body is communicating with one another. And if I don't have that good gut health, it can negatively affect my mood and my mental clarity. And then there's the issue of inflammation and oxidation. So these are things you hear about all the time, always hearing about how am I going to reduce that inflammation? That inflammation impacts so many parts of my health and well-being as far as heart health, joint health, but it also is a big player when it comes to brain health. So those foods that are rich in antioxidants and anti-inflammatory foods, which just so happen to be all those same foods that sit on that Mediterranean DASH diet, those fruits and vegetables, the nuts, the whole grains. You hear me saying whole grains a lot. So many people go, oh, I don't eat any gluten. I don't eat any gluten. The gluten-free thing, this is something, again, you need to talk to your physician, your dietitian. Is this something you need to be on? Because there are a lot of healthy components to having a whole grain, not the refined bread and refined rices and things like that, but looking for that whole grain. All of that helps to add to the big picture of the foods that help to reduce our inflammation and help to prevent any brain cell damage. It helps to improve the neural pathways of our brain. So we're protecting our brain in the long run. So in a nutshell, the Mediterranean diet isn't just about what you eat. It's about how these foods work together and how they support your brain function. They help to reduce your stress, overall help your mental well-being. So it's pretty powerful. So I want to have a little image for you. I'm a visual person, kinesthetic. I like to feel it. So think about the mood roller coaster. What we eat affects how we feel. So when you eat junk food or a lot of refined food, it's like riding in this roller coaster without a seatbelt. You are all over the place. But when you change that and you eat healthy, it is like being within your seatbelt and having a super smooth, steady ride. So it's on one of those fast trains that take you along and doesn't jerk you around too much. Your brain and your mood stays balanced because your brain is getting the support it needs to stay on track and it's not being jostled all over the place. So imagine you're on that mood roller coaster when you eat poorly. And then when you start to eat better, you're going to be on a calm, healthy train. Think about it. Your brain is always on. You are constantly working, even when you're asleep. It's taking care of your thoughts, your movements, your breath, your heartbeat, all of your senses. Your brain is pretty much running the show 24/7. Which means it needs a constant supply of fuel to keep it going. And that fuel is the food that you eat. Now, here's the kicker. The quality of that food really matters. Just like if you were in a really expensive car that runs only on the best fuel, your brain works best when it gets the highest quality nutrition. Doesn't mean it has to be the most expensive. There are reasonable, cost-effective ways to eat that quality food. But you want to eat food that's packed with vitamins and minerals and fiber and antioxidants. We want to be able to nourish the brain to protect ourselves from that oxidative stress that can create damage in our tissues. And that's that waste or free radicals that's produced when our body uses oxygen. We want to be able to clear that out because when it gets in too high of quantities in our system, it can actually damage our cells. When I talk about high blood sugar, I talk about how the blood is kind of like having sand in it. And as it goes through your body, that sandy blood kind of damages all of your vessels. Well, you think about having those free radicals and that waste, oxidative waste, it's also like having a little corrosive element within our system that's damaging the tissues around. So we want to make sure we're flushing it out with all of those antioxidants and nutrients so that it doesn't stay there long enough in order to cause any damage. So just like putting low-grade fuel into a luxury car can cause a problem, your brain suffers when it gets anything less than that premium fuel. And that premium fuel is just real whole foods that have the nutrients and the vitamins that we are looking for. We don't want to be things that are packed with refined sugars. That is a low and a lot of chemicals. That's that low quality fuel. And your body has a tough time clearing that out. It takes a really long time for it to get it out of the system. So it's not just bad for your waistline when you're eating that high refined sugar diet, it's also harmful to your brain. It messes with your insulin also. So it goes back to your blood sugar issues and what it's doing to your heart. And it messes with your inflammation. So now we're creating a higher amount of inflammation in our body, which we can see from all the things that are being touted all over the health journals, that inflammation is basically the cause behind everything. So we want to make sure that we not only take care of our physical body, but by eating those proper healthy foods, we're also going to be able to help make our mood disorders improve. So if you do know someone, or you are someone who is clinically diagnosed, these things can exacerbate the situation. So it's always a good conversation to have with your physician as to what are some good things for you to eat to make sure that you're going to be moving in that positive direction. So when we choose foods that are rich in nutrients instead of processed junk, we are giving our brain the best chance to thrive. And we don't want to just fuel our bodies, because we don't just fuel our bodies. It directly impacts how we feel and how we function. Two more little visuals for you to go with my roller coaster. You know, food is fuel, so we got to make sure we get that car going. And for those of you who are gamers out there, that fuel is like a boost up, where we might be running at a regular level, but healthy eating is like picking up a power up in a game, and it boosts your energy, sharpens your focus, increases your mood. It just helps you like a cheat code would in one of those games. So whatever analogy works best for you. Kind of like to make sure I hit everybody. So we talked a little bit about some of the hormones that are out there, and you've probably heard of serotonin. It's a brain chemical that helps to regulate mood. It's called the calming chemical. It helps with our sleep. It helps with our appetite, but it's also 95% of it is made in our gut. When I was talking earlier about that gut health and how some of our important hormones are created there, serotonin is one of those hormones that our digestive system is packed with the neurons to help me not only digest food, but it also influences our emotions. And the cool part is that the millions of good gut bacteria that we have in our microbiome play a big part in making that serotonin, creating that connection between your gut and your brain, and helping to stabilize and calm your overall mood. There's been some studies out there that have shown that people who follow the traditional diets, and I don't always love the word diets, because you got to know there's some ebbs and flows. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect all the time, but they're looking at kind of basing what they're eating on the Mediterranean or even the Japanese diet. They are 25 to 35% less likely to suffer from depression compared to those who eat that typical Western diet of refined food, fast food, a lot of sugary beverages. Why? Because the Mediterranean, the DASH, the Japanese diets are so full of veggies, fruits, whole grains, fish. You eat all these real foods and you're full. You're not going out and looking to fill yourself up with all of these sugary foods, which don't satisfy us. They don't give us that satiation that we need to feel and continue to be full. So we tend to put way too many calories into our bodies when we eat in that format. But these foods also feed our gut bacteria, and that supports our emotional well-being and our mental health. A lot of these foods also, we're looking at some things as fermented. You may have been hearing about this, eating some fermented foods, even if it's as simple as putting a pickle a day into your diet. They act like natural probiotics, and it just helps your gut and your brain to work better together. Think of it like this. When you eat healthy, the nutrients are like playing instruments. And when you eat, it's like playing the perfect playlist of feel-good songs for your brain. Your gut bacteria, like your serotonin and your endorphins, are the stars of the show. And what they're going to do is they're going to help to boost your mood, help you to feel calm, and keep you energized. So by eating well, you give your brain the best fuel to stay happy and healthy. So I'm going to challenge you to start paying attention to how eating different foods makes you feel. Not necessarily when you just ate it, but how did it make you feel an hour or two later, that evening, or the next day even? Start paying attention to how it feels. What happens when you eat the sugary foods? What happens when you eat the good foods? You can kind of figure out certain foods that start to impact you. People sometimes call it eating clean. You don't have to go and be a completely clean eater and dump everything out. I always like to say, as soon as I tell you you can never have Oreos again, the first thing you want when you walk away from me is Oreos. It's all about thinking about positive changes you can do. We talked about a lot of stuff as we were going on here, and I want you to kind of think about, what spoke to you. By eating healthier, by making some changes, we're going to do things that are going to help to stabilize our blood sugar levels. It helps to keep that blood sugar even so we don't have those highs and lows. This is where that hangry comes in. It improves our brain functioning because we're getting those omega-3 fatty acids, the vitamins, the minerals we need to support that brain function, better concentration, better emotional regulation. You don't fly off the handle so easily. You don't quite get so moody and so depressed and down in the dumps, even kind of terminology. It reduces stress and anxiety. It supports that nervous system as it reduces inflammation. It actually creates a lower risk of stress and anxiety, helps you to be more resilient. That increase in serotonin happens when we do this. So those foods rich in tryptophan, your turkey, your nuts, your seeds, they boost that serotonin level, which just kind of gives you that happy feeling. That's why after Thanksgiving, sometimes everyone wants to go to sleep. They just feel very content and happy because of a lot of the foods that were eaten at that meal. It helps to give you better sleep quality, and this can never be underestimated. Your sleep affects every molecule of your body. And if you're not getting good sleep, it is hard for anything to work well. And when you eat a healthy diet, rich in magnesium and that calcium, it actually promotes better sleep, which allows your body to deal with the stresses you have during the day and kind of self-regulate, bring everything back to a baseline level so that your mood is much more improved and you have a much more positive outlook. And it increases your energy level, which means you're going to do more. So if you're not sitting around feeling sorry for yourself and you're getting up and creating a little movement in your life, which creates circulation through your system, which helps to move those nutrients through the system into the brain and helps to clear out those icky waste products that we talked about and gets them eliminated from the body, it's just going to help us to avoid some fatigue and irritability that can occur. So I want you to really think about when you fuel your body, you're fueling your mood. In essence, nourishing our body with the right foods can help to regulate your emotions, enhance your resiliency to stress, and improve our overall outlook on life. So how are we going to do this? I told you a ton of great stuff going on, but you're like, wow, that's too much for me to change right now. And as a health coach, my challenge to you is, what's one thing that you can do today? One positive change. We don't want to think about detriment. We don't want to say, oh, I can never eat this again, or I can never shop in the middle of the grocery store or have this. Nope. Maybe you find that maybe you're not eating enough vegetables. So instead of saying, I'm going to stop eating this, you're just going to say, I am going to add green leafy vegetables twice a week. And I'm going to do that for 3 weeks. Go ahead and let that become a habit. Feel how you feel as you start to add that. Maybe you drink a lot of sugary beverages. Instead of saying, I'm not drinking soda anymore, you're going to say, I am going to add 1 unsweetened beverage a day. And what happens is, and then maybe a week or 2 down the road, you add 2 unsweetened beverages. Instead of having to say, I'm not going to drink the soda, if you start drinking other beverages and you start having a little bit more energy, you're not going to be going for that sugar or that caffeine hit anymore. And drinking water or maybe an unsweetened tea or something like that is going to help to improve that. So I challenge all of you with everything I kind of talked about. What's one thing you think that you can change? One positive change you can make in order to improve what you're fueling this incredible body that you have with, so that you can enhance it, not only in your mind, your body, and your spirit. So thank you. And I will open it up to questions now.
Thank you so much, Jean Marie. And let me go ahead and stop the recording.